What's going on, everybody? Ricky Bruley here, host of the Range Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited about today's episode. I had the pleasure of having a conversation with Dylan Ray. He is the marketing director at the Pope and Young Club, and he's also the host of a fantastic podcast known as the Typical Sportsman. Dylan has rubbed elbows with some of the greats in the industry, one in particular who is one of my childhood heroes, Mr. Chuck Adams. He's been a longtime user of Vapor Trail products, namely the Limb Driver Pro V, and he was looking to upgrade. He's doing a new bow build with the Prime Form bow and was looking to upgrade his arrow rest, and so we got him outfitted with that. Him and his wife were going on a bear hunt up in Manitoba, so make sure you stick around. We have a fantastic conversation. Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the Archery Range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. Dylan, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, dude. Thanks for having me, man.
I was really excited to kind of see what's been going on with you on your social media channel the last few weeks, and so I'll give you a chance to kind of talk about that in a little bit. But first, if you wouldn't mind, just give our listeners a little introduction on yourself and tell us a little bit about your origin story, what got you into hunting, and then more specifically bow hunting.
Oh man. Well, I grew up in the South, where you just shot everything. Like there was never a time and I struggle with it now because, I'm raising young kids and I want them to be outside, but we also live in a different world than we did, 20 years ago. So you got to be more careful. But, I grew up in a time where you were never inside. I mean, you were always shooting BB guns. You were always outside. You were always, dad was dragging you along, squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, whatever you were doing. And so as soon as I could hunt, that's what I was doing. And I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, but we had a deer camp in South Arkansas, which was it's a different world down there, man. I don't encourage anybody. I'm just kidding. And so grew up going to South Arkansas where, you're going to shoot a deer that's no bigger than your Labrador, but you're going to have a good time in deer camp with all the guys. And that's really all the deer hunting I knew. Like, I never watched, a lot of hunting on TV, and I never got into shooting big deer or hunting out of, blinds over food plots or anything like that. Never knew much about that. All I knew was, we'd drive down to southern Arkansas, we sit in a tower blind and we shoot deer whenever they walk out. And that's what I grew up doing. But then my sister, she's quite a bit older than me. I say that just to poke fun at her. I think she's 8 years older than me, maybe 7 years older than me. And so when she started dating this guy from Kansas, and he was a bow hunter, and I thought this guy was, for being the brother-in-law, like I just thought this dude was like the coolest guy ever,
Yeah.
Just starting college, incredibly jacked, athletic guy, cool guy, athlete, and bow hunter. And so, I remember the first time, and up until this point, the only experience I had with bow hunting, my dad had let me shoot his bow some, but my dad was also the guy who, if Chuck Adams did it, that's what I'm going to do. That's what that was my dad's mentality. Mm-hmm. And so he had a 1987 Hoyt Game Getter, and this was 2013, 2012 in this time where I was shooting this bow, and so that was all I knew archery was old equipment that, sounded like a gun going off and hurt you to draw back because you're pulling 70 and you're holding back 68 pounds. That's what I thought of archery. Mm-hmm. And then this guy started coming around, and I'll never forget this bow. It was a Matthews Z7 Extreme, all blacked out. And you're like, dude, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my lifetime. because again, all I thought of archery equipment was like old recurves or, you know, super old compounds that barely work and the cams are this big around.
Yeah.
And then they pull out, you know, this Z7 and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this thing is sweet. And so I immediately wanted to start bow hunting. Like that was, you know, seeing him do it and like he was the cool guy I knew, I wanted to start bow hunting. And so I moved off to college and I actually went to college just 10 minutes from where they lived. And so he was super instrumental in getting me into bow hunting and helping me. He actually bought my first bow, funded me the money for my first bow. And I actually told him, I was telling him this story not too long ago and tears kind of came to my eyes because now I literally make my living in archery. And so for him to have helped me with that, it's like, I mean, it's super, super instrumental in the way my life turned out. And he did say, I don't think I ever paid him back for that bow, but I'm not paying him back now, sucker. Anyways.
Yeah, I think there's a statute of limitations, right?
100%. 10, you know, that's 13 years ago, dude. You're not getting your money.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, like he funded me the money to buy this first bow. And again, I was out of state at college. And so I called my dad and I'm like, Dad, Adam just helped me buy a bow. Like I need to figure out, I'm going to come home this weekend. I want to hunt. And so my dad was like, cool, man. Like I'll go hang a tree stand. Like we'll figure something out. And so I go home that weekend. We sighted this bow in the headlights of his truck.
Nice.
You know, the night before I was leaving to go back home, and I shoot what I would have considered a mega giant. And really, even for Arkansas, really still is. You know, it's probably only like 115, 120, but for Arkansas, that's a stud. And I remember calling Adam, like he was one of the first people I called, and he was like, no, you didn't, dude. Like, whatever. This is your first time ever out with a bow. Like, you did not shoot a stud. And sure enough, man, like from that moment, I was just hooked. Like I knew this is all I want to do.
Yeah.
But still, it never clicked to me like there's a much bigger archery world out there than this. Like I just thought, you know, I bought a $200 bow off Craigslist and like, this is bow hunting. It never really like clicked to me that there's this massive world of archery equipment and you can get into all these different things. But then in college, you know, I just needed a job. And so I started looking for a job and found a job. It was at the time called Norman Archery. And if you've been in the industry for any amount of time, you probably worked with them. They were the third largest archery distribution company in the world. And so at the time I was just pulling orders. Like they had this massive warehouse and, you know, these shops, dealers across the country would place orders and I would go around and pick the orders and ship them out. Knowing they owned a bow shop too, they had a storefront bow shop on the other side of Oklahoma City. And one day, like I was just doing that, picking orders, pulling orders, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Like I'm seeing all this new archery equipment. Like I'm like, dude, I never knew you could spend $200 on sights. Like that blew my mind. And they called me one day and they're like, hey, so-and-so's sick at the shop. We need somebody to go down there and help. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so after a week of doing that, like I told them, like, I never want to go back. Like I never want to go back to pulling orders. I want to work in the bow shop. And so I did that through college. And that's how I got in the industry, man. And then, you know, if you want to talk about how I got into the media world, we certainly can. But that's kind of how that opened a whole new world of my eyes. I'm like, wait, you can hunt more than just whitetails in Arkansas? Like I never knew that. I never knew there was elk and bear. Like obviously I knew of those animals, but I didn't know that bow hunting those animals were a realistic opportunity. And so working in the bow shop just really, really changed my life as far as what I wanted to do and be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going back to what you're talking about with, you know, bows and not knowing it, you know, my first bow I got when I was 16. And so again, it wasn't until like maybe 4 or 5 years later, actually it was more like a decade later, when I started working in the industry that I realized that there's way more to it than I thought. You know, I didn't realize that, you know, you can go down some serious rabbit holes and tuning and all that kind of stuff. I mean, my first bow was a teardrop PSE Polaris, you know, and nothing special. And so when I got like my first, what I would call a legit, you know, compound bow and started having success with it, just to your point, like was hooked. I'm like, this is awesome. This is my calling. 25 years old. I'm like, this is it. You know, and I've been hunting with a gun with my old man for a long time, you know, just like you kind of brought up into hunting and stuff, but that was where it was at. I absolutely loved it. And then, so I do want to talk a little bit about the media side of things too. So when you were in college, your degree, was that in marketing, or what area of expertise were you getting into?
My degree is actually, if you've listened to my podcast at all, you know I'm a pastor of a church. My degree is actually in pastoral ministry.
Oh, right on.
I was going to a Bible college. I had no background in marketing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I met in that time in the bow shop. Like, it was a big bow shop, well known bow shop, and so we had a lot of the people in the industry. As they would drive through. Like, I remember being in class one day and they called me and they're like, "Hey, Chipper Jones and Matt Duff are in here to get their bows worked on."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, peaced out. I'm like, "See you, teach. Like, I'm out of here. Like, I got to go to the shop." And so, like, I just met a lot of dudes in the industry that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
We had several. Those were probably the only big name like bow hunters. But like a lot of the Cardinals and stuff, like they'd be coming through, or coming through playing sports or whatever, needed a bow work on. Like, so I got to meet a lot of cool people, and and so just when I moved and started my ministry, my career as a pastor, I'm like, man, how do I take these connections and use them, use them not to my advantage, but use them to, kind of have a voice in the industry, kind of have a position in the industry. And so, that just started as like, well, hey, I'll just start a little social media. I never had social media, which sounds, kind of funny now that where I'm at, but I grew up in a very conservative Christian household. It wasn't like, hey, you can have Facebook and you can have, MySpace and all these things.
Yeah.
Those things weren't allowed. And so I'm like, well, I don't even know what an Instagram is, but I'll start it. And,
Yeah.
and so just started using some connections and like Morel Targets was in my hometown, and I knew those guys well, actually from church. And so I just called them like, hey, I just want to like take some photos for you guys. Like, I just want to, whatever it takes, man. I just want to do this and have fun with it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes tell people, like, in those days I was spending money, to do this. Like, my wife would be like, wait, why are you buying these new arrows for, like, and I'm like, well, I just want to do some photos for them. And she's like, well, you already have arrows, like, take photos of those. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not new arrows. Like, so oftentimes, like, I was spending money just to try and have, some sort of influence,
Right. Yep. Yeah. No, that's kind of cool how that all panned out and worked out. So are you still doing stuff in that area, or are you completely focused with Pope and Young Club now?
So yes and no. That actually turned into, like, that got way out of hand way fast. Like, ended up having a TV show for Mossy Oak. That just kind of turned into making connections at Mossy Oak, and they wanted a TV show, and so ended up filming a TV show for them for a while, and then got approached by a company by the name of Powder Hook. And basically this conversation, he called me and he's like, hey, I hear you're a pastor. And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, so that means you're good at talking. And I'm like, okay. And he said, and you host a TV show for Mossy Oak, so it means you like to hunt. And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, you want to do a podcast for us? And I'm like, I don't even know what a podcast is, but I've never met a mic I don't like, so sure.
There you go.
And so started doing that podcast, and so that to take a step back, the TV show was sponsored by Bear, that we did for Mossy Oak, and Powder Hook was a partner of Bear, so they sponsored the podcast, and so I did that for a long time. Well, then Powder Hook got bought out by the government agency. I don't even remember the name of it. M3 something. Nobody even knows who they are, but basically, it's the organization that you buy your tags from nationwide. They handle all of the tags, anyways.
Okay.
And so they basically said, hey, this podcast is going to become very political. And we don't think it's fair to you, since you built it, to do that. So we're going to give you the chance to take it and make it your own. And at that time, I really just had this is before the Pope and Young days. This is still just, I have it 8 to 5, doing ministry and doing this. And I just had no interest in making it my own, mainly because I knew, well, if it's just, some dumb redneck with a mic, it's not going to have any kind of, feet behind it. And so I just called Bear Archery, because I'd worked with them for years on the TV show and the podcast, and I just said, hey, I have the opportunity to take the podcast and make it my own. Any interest in that? And they were like, Yeah, absolutely. So at that point, it became a bear archery podcast.
Okay.
And I did that for 6 years. Hosted the bear archery podcast. Absolutely loved it. Man, that podcast grew like I never knew a podcast could grow. Like it was an incredible ride. And that's actually how I met the guys at Pope and Young. So I get a phone call one day, and it was at the time the president of Pope and Young, and he's like, "Hey, I'm in your hometown bow hunting," and I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, I want to do a podcast," and I'm like, "Let's do it, man." And so we meet up, do a podcast, and his name's Jim Willems, and just one of the greatest guys on planet Earth. He's still on our board at Pope and Young, but. And so that became just a friendship, man. And every time he would come into town, we would record or hang out and just shoot bows. And he taught me how to shoot a recurve and got me into that. And after a couple years of that, we were sitting there having lunch one day, and he's like, "Hey, we need a new marketing director. You in?" And I'm like, "Sure. Like, let's party with it, dude."
Yeah.
And so, but I was still doing the bear archery podcast, and then Pope and Young actually wanted to start a podcast, and so I was at the time doing 2 podcasts, one for Pope and Young, one for Bear. And then as of this year, I officially January 1 stepped away from Bear and started my own thing, Typical Sportsman Podcast. And Pope and Young decided that there's no point in doing their podcast, so we just kind of promote Pope and Young relevancy on the Typical Sportsman Podcast, and if there's conservation issues, we talk about it on there. If
Right.
Cover the convention on there, new world records on there, things like that. So, yeah, man, it's been a wild ride, and I look back and I'm like, what in the crap did I do to be here? I don't know how I got here sometimes, but yeah, man, that's where I'm at. So, mainly right now, just running Pope and Young's marketing and doing the Typical Sportsman Podcast.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it sounds like, especially in this case, the Lord has provided, and
Absolutely.
you're in good company too, as far as that goes. I have listened to a few of the episodes from the Typical podcast. In fact, yesterday I was just listening to the one with Randy Newberg, and I got a crack out of your guys' conversation about turkey hunting, because I'm on the turkey struggle bus right now, big time.
Because turkey hunting's stupid.
That's exactly why I laughed. I'm like, yep, I can't agree more.
Dude, I almost fist fought. You know Nate Hosey at all?
I don't know him personally, but I know.
Yeah, we almost fist fought because of my crap talking on turkey hunting. At ATA, we were on a podcast, and I told him how stupid turkey hunting was, but I've just never. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me, man. It's a bird. Like I don't.
Yeah, and I get it. I used to have that kind of same thought process even before. Growing up here in Minnesota, in northern Minnesota where I grew up, I didn't know Minnesota even had turkeys.
Yeah.
And then circle back around, a decade later, and I come back to Minnesota, and I'm living in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And then I just start seeing them everywhere, and everybody hunts them, and they're all like, you got to do it. You got to do it. And the biggest thing that I love about it is just getting me prepped. You know what I mean? It forces me to get my bow ready, start tuning it, start getting it going. Gives me an excuse to get out into the woods, with the kids and the family and stuff like that. It works out well because I'm usually up and on my way to work before my wife gets up anyways. So it's really no different when except I'm getting up at 3:30 and, out the door. So that makes it a little bit easier. And then, just being able to sit in a blind and not have to worry so much about, your scent control, or, you can sit and have a conversation. You can kind of BS a little bit. And right now I've got Damon Wolf with All for One Creative. He's been sitting in the blind with me with a camera. And so him and I have been just kind of like scheming up ideas. And so that's kind of cool too. So it's almost like we're having a daily meeting in the blind,
Right.
And so I love it, but I still I totally understand. Like, I wouldn't fist fight you over it, because right now I'm about to fist fight a turkey, honestly, because I can't.
Dude, I tell people all the time that like turkey hunting. I'm like, have you ever heard of pig hunting? Like, that you can, go pig hunting, and I can shoot 40 in a weekend. You're chasing one bird, for the weekend. I'm chasing 40 pigs.
Yeah. And the pigs most likely won't make you pull your hair out.
Now, I will say this, to your point about kids, I have started taking my boy out turkey hunting. and for selfish reasons, because it's something I can tell him we're going hunting for, and I really don't care at all if we kill anything. Like,
right.
For us, it's just having fun in the woods. Like, he's going to take his BB gun and shoot everything in the woods. Like, I'm going to have my recurve and shoot a couple rabbits or squirrels or whatever we see along the way. And we're just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if we see any birds. We're not going to see any birds because I don't turkey hunt. Like, I don't even know if there's any turkeys on my property.
Right. Yeah.
And so I don't really care about the success of it. But again, it's still like my boy is out there and he's locked in. Like, to him, this is the biggest hunt of the world. Like, he just drew an elk tag for a once in a lifetime tag. Like,
yeah,
this is it for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we are practicing the entire time on honing his skills. Like, we are practicing the entire time on, like, hey, got to be quiet. Can't just run through the woods. Can't do this, that, and the other. And he has been with me, having killed a couple deer, and he's actually going on a bear hunt with me in about a week and a half. So he's stoked about that. But we use the turkey hunting to refine those things. You know what I mean? Like, I use it as practice, and we have a good opportunity on the property we're at to see a lot of deer, even while we're just walking through the woods. And so it gives him the opportunity to see how deer respond when they see him. So, I mean, I do go out with him. I don't even take a decoy. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care to kill a bird. But yeah, man, I've never gotten fired up for turkeys. I'm like, dude, you guys that, you've got guys that, hunt 13 different states in a year. I'm like, dude, I don't care if you shoot them in Montana or Iowa. It's a bird. Like, who cares?
Yeah. I've got a buddy. He says and I believe it. I mean, he probably kills about 30 birds a year. He doesn't like to talk about it. He doesn't like to brag about it. He'll post some stuff on social media, but he tries to be careful with that because people start getting fired up about, him, taking too many or something like that, or breaking rules and all of that. So he's really careful with that. But to your point, like, that's his thing. He does deer hunt in the fall, but he's looking for turkeys when he's deer hunting. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's just his thing. And with a bow specifically, I'm sure he owns a shotgun, but I've never seen him kill one with a shotgun. And to be honest, I haven't. Hunting turkeys with a bow is probably one of the more challenging things to hunt, quite possibly. And I think there's something about that too, like embracing the suck. So
I would agree.
I think some people, kind of get a rise out of that. But in any case, let's shift over. I want to talk a little bit about your bear hunt that you went on. Just this whole thing. I love that you're understand how to work on a bow and you understand the mechanics of everything and all that. We got you set up with an arrow rest, and so you and I were kind of communicating back and forth on how to get it set up and everything. And it was great working with you in that regard. Sounds like everything has been functioning well. And so why don't you tell the story a little bit about that hunt, how it kind of got started, and then how it ended.
Absolutely, man. Well, first off, Vapor Trail is one of the reasons I wanted to start my own thing. I haven't even told you that part of things, but there were so many companies, so many products that I used back in the day before the Bear Archery days. For those of you that don't know, Bear Archery owns Trophy Ridge as well, or I should say they're owned by the same company. And so, for 6 years, even before that, because I hosted their podcast for 6, did the TV show before that. So for going on probably 8-9 years, I was locked into only Bear and Trophy Ridge.
Yeah.
Well, I had so many products that I loved from the past, like, and selfishly, like, guys would call me, they're like, I need an arrow rest, and I'm like, dude, stinking Pro V, like 100%, go with it. And like, because there were so many products that I loved from before Bear Archery. I shot the same Pro V for probably 5 years before the Bear Archery days.
Yeah.
And guys like Scott. I mean, Scott was a good friend of mine from the industry, and for 8 years I hadn't been able to even shoot his sights yet. Like, I had seen him and I'd played with him, and obviously spent a lot of time around Hot Scott is what I call him. But I'd spent a lot of time around. But I'm like, dude, there's so many companies I want to work with that I haven't been able to. And so, as soon as that happened, I told Scott, I'm like, dude, I know the guys at Vapor Trail. Like, I got to get a Pro V in my hands, and I got to get back I felt like coming back home almost.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I got the Integrate 8, and took off a Hamsky, which I despise. Punted that thing across the universe because it sucks. No offense. If you shoot a Hamsky, all good. Like, if you love a Hamsky, you love a Hamsky, whatever. To me, they're clunky. They're hard to tune. Anyways, they're louder than the Integrate. All that aside, I get that. I put it on my wife and my wife's bow, and within probably an hour, night one, both of them were shooting bullet holes. It's really hard for me to get my wife's bow to shoot a bullet hole because I'm shooting a 26-inch bow like this. But had both of them shooting bare shaft bullet holes through paper. Now, if you're a tuner, you know that's just the beginning. And I knew that was just the beginning. So the next day I go out and I'm shooting, and my bare shafts are slapping my fletched, and my fletched are slapping my broadheads. And I'm like, dude, stinking heck yeah, bro, let's party. I think I'd already told you, I'm like, that was the easiest tuning I'd done in a long time.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm dumb, I didn't know there was a set screw inside the rest. And so at first, like, I'm shooting just, this thing is shooting money. And then, before the end of night one, I'm like, dude, what is going on here? Like, I suck. I had just thought, like, dude, you are absolutely garbage. Now, I had taken I don't want to say 2-year hiatus, but I had taken a long stint, and I had shot pretty much recurves exclusively. Wanted to shoot a deer with my recurve, so that was year one. Wanted to shoot a bear with my recurve, that was year two. Like, so it just took all of my time. So I just thought, okay, your mechanics, like, just take a break, because I know you were shooting good when you came out. Like, so you're just getting tired. Like, just give it a break. And so the next morning I come out and it's shooting worse, and I'm like, what is going on here? Well, then I finally look at my bow, and I'm like, dude, this rest is sitting like halfway down the stinking shelf. No wonder. And so I raise it back up, keep shooting, it's falling back down. I'm like, what is going on here? And so I'm freaking out because this is the week before my hunt.
Yeah.
And so I call you, and you're like, dude, there's a set screw in there. And I'm like, dude, I'm an idiot. So tighten that set screw down, and sure enough, never moved again. Both bows are shooting absolutely just slinging darts.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, this all happened, man, this bear hunt. Colby from Bear Hunting Magazine, good friend of mine, great guy. If you're not a subscriber to Bear Hunting Magazine, I would highly recommend you to be. It's a great magazine. I don't have any stake in the game, but he does a really good job for that magazine. Anyways, so we meet up and we're talking, and we do a podcast. We're having a good time. And he says, you know what? I have this media tag for Manitoba, but I can't make it. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, do you want to go on a hunt in Manitoba? And I'm like, fat kid like cake or what, dude? And so we iron out all these details, and it was with Baldy Mountain Outfitters. Travel Manitoba had basically covered his fees, covered the tag and all of these sort of things. And so I went from, I don't have a hunt until June to now I have a hunt in a week, 2 weeks. And I'm like, crap, I got to get these bows ready.
Yeah.
And so that's when I got the rest, and I'm like, I'm the type of guy, I'll spend a week tuning a bow. Just because I want to make sure it's money through and through before I tie everything down and I lock everything down, and that's my setup. Sometimes it changes in that week, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's locked in day one, but I still don't finalize everything, tie in my peep, lock the rest down, all those sort of things until the end, just in case I do need to change something.
Right.
But I'll say, dude, after day one, shouldn't say after day one. After I got that lock screw set, I had such confidence in my bow setup that I was locking everything down, and I was ready to go on a hunt. And and even at bear camp, and if you've ever hunted bears over bait, I mean, you're gonna have a 15-yard shot. That's no big deal. But even at bear camp, dude, I mean, I was dropping 60-yard bombs with broadheads on, and I'm like, dude, I've had this bow for a week.
Yeah.
Like, this is unreal. But yeah, man, I mean, just absolute money. The bow is shooting fantastic.
Love that.
And then the old wife, she's got the RVX Plus, and she's shooting the Integrate as well. And we both have a tag for Idaho here in about a week and a half. So
nice.
hopefully we both punch a bear tag. This would be her first recovered big game animal, if she does recover it. She shot a couple does back in the day, but we never found either of them. So
shoot.
Yeah. I've learned from those, though. I know why we didn't find them. Shooting the wrong broadheads. Just honestly, her bow. I don't want to talk bad about any bow. But the bow she was shooting at the time was very, 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 very finicky. And everything had to be perfect for it to shoot well.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is her grip, her release, like everything.
Yeah.
It was a very finicky bow. But with this, I mean, I have full confidence in her setup. And I have full confidence in her shooting ability. I had full confidence in her shooting ability back then, or I wouldn't let her shoot at one of my deer. But yeah, her arrow just didn't penetrate well, and yeah. But I think with this, I think she's set up ready to punch a tag. So
Nice. That's awesome. So this hunt you went on in Manitoba, let's talk a little bit more about that. So how did that all go down? Tell the story about the actual hunt itself.
So when we get there, I was kind of shocked because it was freezing cold. We left Kansas at 70 and sunny.
Yeah.
And we get there and it's like, I'm trying to do the conversion because I know they were saying it was -10. So that'd have been, 25, 26 degrees, somewhere in there. And so below freezing, and, if you've ever bear hunted, bears don't like cold, hence why they hibernate.
Yeah.
Now the outfitter, Todd with Baldy Mountain, he had preferenced this by saying like, this could be really good for you because you're not going to see a ton of bears, but the first bears that come out of hibernation and start hitting these baits are bigger, more mature boars.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see, if you came in 3 weeks, you'd see 20 bears in a sit. You might see 1 or 2 bears in a sit, but they're going to be bigger, more mature bears.
Yeah.
And I told him like, dude, I'm not a trophy hunter. Which is so funny because I work for Pope and Young. Which Pope and Young does get a bad rep for being only trophy hunters. We're not. We like to hunt. And so I told him like, dude, I'm not a trophy hunter. Like if a bear comes in and I get giddy, I'm probably gonna punch an arrow through it. And anyway, so we set night 1, not a bear in sight. Like you would have thought there's no bears in stinking Manitoba.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it got real cold that night. Like I remember looking at my wife and I'm like, this is a stinking late season deer hunt, like in Kansas.
Yeah.
Like it was freezing cold. And I didn't pack for cold. She hates cold. So like we were miserable.
Yeah.
Day 2, it started warming up. And so I had some pretty high hopes. I'm like, man, this is going to be nice. Cause those bears, we know they were locked down last night cause it was so cold. So they're going to be even hungrier today. It's pretty weather. They're going to be out and about having a good time.
Yeah.
And so we get out to the stand earlier, and we did see a couple bears. Neither of them came in or presented us a shot. That's also the problem with going early season. Those bears are fresh out of hibernation, so they're super. I like to say sensitive to smell and sight. Because they're kind of just waking up, and so it's more like they don't have their bearings about them. Both of them winded us and bolted. And so it's just like, man, this is going to be rough. But looking forward to the forecast, I'm like, well, it's supposed to just keep getting warmer. Now we only had 3 days to do this because just of time. She's a school teacher, couldn't take off, a full week. I had to preach on Sunday, so we couldn't get there till Monday. And so I knew Wednesday was our last night, but I knew it was supposed to be a pretty stinking good night. And so the way this kind of worked out, they have it takes about an hour and a half to drive to the far side of the park that we were hunting in. So we drive all the way over there, and he's like, this is usually like my honey hole. This is my go-to. Actually, I saw your comment about Camp Chef. Do you know Brooks at Camp Chef?
I don't. No.
So
I don't.
So I don't know his role, but he's one of the, I guess, higher ups, you would say. When he saw me post about this, he called me and he's like, dude, I hunted with Todd a couple years ago. You're in for a good hunt. And I'm like, sweet. And so on the way over there, he's like, this is the stand. Actually, Brooks shot a giant color phase in 2 years ago. And I'm like, well, that's good to know.
Oh, wow.
And then Colby shot a mega giant, just dandy color phase last year. And so I'm like, well, that's giving me hope. And so we're getting set in the tree stand. He's checking the camera. Doesn't get over there often because, again, it's an hour and a half drive. And he's looking at the camera and he's like, this doesn't look great, dude. He's like, I got a couple bears coming in. He's like, usually this time of year, I should already have 5 or 6 bears a day coming into this stand.
Yeah.
And he's like, this doesn't. And so I'm just immediately like, well, crap. Like, that's not good. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to drive over to another stand that's not far from here. I'm going to check that camera. And this is still real early in the day with how hot it got. We got out there at like 1 p.m. So it's,
Sure.
you know, we got it, shooting light was still 9:30. So we got 8.5 hours to sit here still.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I'm going to drive over there and I'm going to check that. And if it looks just phenomenal, I'm going to come back and get you. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. Well, while he's talking, my wife is like, there's a mega giant bear right there running through the woods. And so he's like, well, I'm going to get out of here then. Like, you know, if I come back and get you, I come back and get you. And I'm like, sounds good, man. So he leaves, and we sit there for probably an hour and a half. Now, before he left, he did say, he's like, there is a really pretty cinnamon bear in here, though. And I'm like, he's like, it's not a giant bear, but it's a gorgeous bear. And I'm like, say no more.
Right.
I'm a trigger man. I'll fling arrows at anything. And so he leaves, and we're sitting there for maybe an hour and a half. And my wife just says, she was kind of faced a different way than me. I was sitting on the front of the tree. She was sitting like kind of like behind me, and she's like, there's a big cinnamon coming. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, you've never seen a bear in the wild. Are you sure? And and so I turned and looked. Sure enough, this gorgeous cinnamon's coming. And the first bear that I had seen on this sit, she had saw that big one run through the woods, comes in and gives me a gorgeous shot and just pinwheeled the bear. And I'm glad we stayed in the stand because we really hadn't got to experience Manitoba yet. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, while we were sitting there, and if you've seen the video, it's on my YouTube. While we're sitting there, there's grouse drumming in the background. There's ducks cutting into the river, like right here. Like, we're watching these ducks. We're hearing these grouse. We're watching bears in front of us. Like, that is what Manitoba is. Like, the remote, you know, wild part of the country. And but we hadn't got to experience that yet. And so after I shoot the bear, I start trying to radio to Todd, but his radio was still off. Thank God it was, because over the next 3 hours, like, we had a couple giant bears come in, and they're giving us a show, you know, scratching their backs on trees, licking branches, like, just, you know, swatting at squirrels, like, you know, ducks flying in, grouse drumming in the background. I look at her at one point, and I'm like, this is Manitoba. Like, this is what I wanted all along. Yeah. But yeah, man, as soon as he came back, he radioed in about 6 o'clock, and you know, he's like, are you on? Do you have anything? Or, you know, and we did. So he came in, and bear only made it about 50, 60 yards and piled up. So incredible hunt, man. Like, it was a dream come true. I always say it never comes easy for me. And that pisses me off, you know, because you hear some guys and they're like, oh, an hour and a half into my hunt, dude, I shoot a 400-inch bull. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the guy that's like day 11, you know, day 11 averaging 56 miles a day, and it's in the rain and still trying to find bulls. It never happens easy for me. And I always get mad about that. Like, you know, you only got 3 days to do it. So after night 2, you're like, it never just stinking happens. Like, it never just falls in your lap. But then after the fact, I'm always glad. Like, I'm glad that it wasn't like night 1 hour into the hunt, you're done. Yeah. Cause then you just, you know, at the time it makes you mad. But then after the hunt, it's like, you want those nights laying in bed, like, wondering if it's going to happen. You want those nights laying in bed, like, you know, wondering and hoping it's gonna work out. And then when it does, it just makes it that much better, man.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, anytime you think back on any hunt you've ever done, especially if you're doing it with some friends or some people that you like spending time with, there's always, you know, little mini stories in, you know, during the big story, and there's so many of those little elements that wouldn't happen, you know, without it getting extended out. But I hear you there too. Like, it rarely comes easy for me. It has a few times, but typically I got to work for it. And so I always anticipate that. But again, going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier with, you know, embracing the suck, and I don't know, there's just something about the struggle that adds so much value to 100%. The hunt as well. And like, when it comes to bear hunting too, my favorite part is the baiting part. So like, here in Minnesota, you know, we would go, you know, we got to drive 2.5, 3 hours to get to a lot of the spots where we would put up bait stations. And so we would go up just on the week, like on a Friday, or like we'd go up super early on a Saturday morning, and we had about 12 bait stations that we'd put bait out on. And just those like 4 weekends in a row leading up to bear hunting is like my favorite part, right? Because then you get in the stand, and, you know, sometimes it's that first night, bear comes in, you shoot it, you're done, you know, and it's like, shoot, you know, so it's great. But then at the same time, you kind of long for some of the experiences that come along with that struggle too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I love bear hunt. I would love to do it. I'd love to do it again, but family and kids, it gets kind of tough. And then plus our busy season is August here at Vapor Trail with the bowstrings and stuff. So, our baiting season starts in August, so it gets tough to try to do both. You're working Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, you're running up and you're baiting, you're checking cameras, and you're doing all that. And so there's never a day off. It gets to be tough. But I hope to do it again. I would like to do an outfitted bear hunt up in Canada at some point. I've got a few people that I know that keep, every year they keep, nudging me to get up there and do some of that. So hopefully one of these days I'll get up and do it. But that's really cool, man.
I got an opening in a couple weeks, man. If you want to just take off, let's go party, dude. We'll kill some bears, have a good time.
Oh boy, we might need to talk about that a little bit.
Dude, and don't get me wrong. Like, for those of you listening and you're like, did he just say bear hunting's hard? No, it's not. Like, I'm sitting in a tree stand waiting. I'm not saying it's physically hard, but the mental game of like, dude, did I just drive, 24 hours and make my wife take off a week of work and we're going to go back having seen 2 bears, not even come into the bait? Like,
yeah. It
was the mental staying in the game. And like I said, it seems to me like I always wait until the last second. Like, not that I'm trying to, trust me. Like I said, I'm a trigger man. I don't have no problem shooting one early in the hunt. It just never happens. And actually, what's funny, this last year on my elk hunt, like an hour into the hunt, I've got a bull, a dandy bull, probably 340, just screaming in my face at 13 yards. Like,
oh man.
So in that moment, I'm thinking like, dude, it's never happened like this. Like, all my buddies got to continue hiking their tail off for another 11 days. I'm going to be done.
Yeah.
And like all that's going through my head. But he had came up the trail, like it was a frontal shot and I was behind a tree. So I would have had to step out and then shoot a frontal, like just sketchy.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like, this has never happened to me. And the bull, I still think he's just going to come, like, just brush the tree I'm up against, and I'm going to shoot him, as he passes. And all of a sudden, the bull just spooks and leaves. And I'm like, what in the heck was that? Like, I know he didn't win me. I know he didn't see me. I know he didn't hear me. I'm thinking, what the heck is that? Well, we had done a giveaway. I can't say this on my podcast because I don't know if he still listens or not. He probably doesn't after the week I put him through. But I had done a giveaway. Bear had done a giveaway with Mountain Tough to do a free elk hunt with me. And so they paid they paid everything, travel expenses, tags, license, outfitters, sent you a new bow, all this stuff. And so the giveaway winner was up by the guide who was calling. And so we get done and we're back at camp and I'm like, dude, I still want to know what happened to that bull. And he's like, I'll tell you what happened to that bull. He's like, the giveaway winner was back here going, there's a big bull right here. He's like, and the bull literally looks up at him screaming and moving around and leaves. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. Like, you're joking, right? And he's like, no, I'm not joking. He's like, you can blame it on this guy.
Oh,
and I'm like,
man.
Oh my Lord. It was rough. I was a little mad.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't, I think bow hunting is hard.
Yeah.
So I don't care what species you're hunting. Bow hunting is hard. So
yeah,
don't sell yourself short on that. I mean, and like you said, especially with family and all that kind of stuff, that changes everything. You know what I mean? Like, I have to do everything I possibly can to stack the cards in my deck. And so I will wait, to make sure that I can do that where, like, it's not like when I was in my late 20s and early 30s when I could just, pack it up and head out and go and take as much time as I wanted, but yeah, man, good for you. That's awesome. I was super excited when I saw that you got that bear. And, we'll probably do a dedicated post for you if you're okay with that. You sent me a lot of those photos, so we'll do something on our Vapor Trail channel for that. And then I also wanted to kind of go back and address the set screw thing too, because I just want to take a moment to talk about that, because that wasn't in the original design. And so then, we did all our testing and everything like that, and everything was good. And then once we launched it and started sending them out, all of a sudden people started reporting to us that the rests were sliding, and we're like going, what in the heck? Like, we didn't run into any of that when we were doing our R&D. And so the quickest pivot that we could do was to put that set screw in there. And it's not the most user-friendly thing, and we've got a ton of content out there talking about it, but it's the best that we can do at this point. So again, it's not it's not all on you, you know what I mean? It's just, it's something that, we're trying to, we tried to rectify, and it was the best Band-Aid that we could come up with. And it seems to work, but it doesn't happen on all bows either. You know what I mean? Like
It doesn't
specific
happen.
finishes.
It doesn't happen on the RVX Plus. Like on my wife's bow, never slid.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know. Maybe her bow's not just like generating enough. I mean, she's only,
Yeah.
like I said, 26-inch, 44 pounds. Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
she's not generating enough umph, but like
Yeah.
hers never budged. Mine, 3 shots in, was down.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And the poundage and the energy is certainly a factor involved in that. But I'm glad we got it all figured out before you went on your hunt. And, some people, they just kind of deal with it, and it's like, and then in the end something bad happens and they're like blaming us for it. And I was just like, man, we could have rectified it, or we could have tried to fix the problem, if you had contacted us. But and that's rare. It's a small percentage, but
it's one of the reasons I hate Hamsky with passion. Yeah, to be fair, just like you said, user error, I'm sure. I'm sure I didn't have something tightened down all the way, but that's part of why I hate it, because there's 97 screws that you have to make sure is tightened for the rest to function well.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, it's always been a dream of mine to shoot a bear standing up. I don't know why. That iconic video of Fred Bear shooting the bear in the chest, like I think that's probably it. But
Right.
I've also got a target in my backyard of a bear standing up, and so it's like always just been a dream of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And last year I had the opportunity. I had a bear standing up on its back legs, giant chocolate bear, standing up on its back legs at 30 yards. And I send one. Height was perfect, but it was like 4 inches to the right. And I'm like,
Oh no.
how did I do that? Like, what did I? So I get back to camp, and sure enough, all my arrows are hitting 4 inches to the right. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Sights are good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my rest had come loose, and anyways.
Shoot.
Yeah. Again, it was user error. Like, Hamsky makes a good rest. There's no doubt about that. But again, I had always said this about the Pro V. It's simple and bomb proof. Like, once you lock it in, it's bomb proof, and that's what I want. That's what I want in a rest. Like, out of anything on my bow, that is the single most important thing that can be bomb proof is your rest.
Yeah, and that's where we get a lot of people that want us to. One of the reasons why they don't shoot it is because they want to have like a lockup feature of some sort, something like that. And I can certainly understand that. Our stance on it is that we want to try to keep the mechanism as simple as possible. So as soon as you start including any sort of lockup feature, you can't necessarily guarantee that it's going to go down. If something fails in the mechanism or something goes wrong, you're in trouble. And then timing is critical and stuff like that, having to serve into your cable. And so by going to the limb, it's more foolproof if something happens in the field. I mean, we've had guys, use the most random things, a shoelace, stuff like that in a pinch. Mm-hmm. It's rare, but again, we've had some people give us testimonials on using just some of the most random things, zip ties, whatever they can find to try to get their rest functioning again. So that's where we pride ourselves on the technology. And to be honest, we are actually working on a product that it would be an add-on that could potentially allow the rest to lock up in the up position, but that's something we're currently just researching now. So could be a few years before that comes out, but yeah, just super happy that you're excited about our products and absolutely love that. Glad we could be a part of your hunt and help make it successful. So
absolutely, man. I appreciate it incredibly. And, I want to get a lot into rests because the things that you're saying are raising questions in my mind. However, we're going to do that on my podcast. So
yep, we're going to do that next. And speaking of gear, I'm looking at your bow that's hanging back there on the wall, and it's very, very much the same setup that I've got on mine here behind me. So it looks like you're shooting a form, and you got a rest on there. You've got a proof sight on there. Stokerized stabilizer on there, it looks like. So we're both shooting a very similar setup, which is pretty cool. And hopefully soon enough when we start getting these Victors, I'd like to get one of those in your hands too, so you can get that on your bow. That might be a little ways out yet, but yeah,
I probably won't like it as much. I'm just saying.
Maybe not. We'll see. But at least you'll have both, right?
Yeah. Let me just say this about when I build a bow, it's all about like, okay, can I chunk this thing down the mountain and to pick it up and shoot it? Like, now I say that, but I'm also like, I baby my bows more than I baby my kids. Like, we'll say this: if there's no room in the car, like my son can be in the trunk, and I'm gonna have the bow in the seat. Like, I take care of my bows, but I also you just know how it goes on the mountain.
Yeah.
And so when I'm building the bow, I want everything to be bomb proof. And so that was intentionally, those products that you pointed out, those were intentionally why I picked those products. Like, these are things that aren't going to fail me.
Yeah.
And hey, I'll be the first to say this, and I'll say this to Scott's face: the Arxos sucked. I hated that sight, everything about it. Again, I never hunted with one; those were during the bear archery days. But I had played with one a lot, and Scott had sent me one, and I played with it on bows, and never spent time within the mountains. And I wouldn't have, I just wouldn't have put it on my bows. But the proof, man, they have changed everything they needed to change. And I told Scott, I'm like, dude, I'm keeping my black gold sitting right here. And if this sight isn't what it needs to be, like, I'm putting the black gold on, no offense. But, and that sight is money, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to agree. Right when they came out, I played with the idea of getting one as well. And interestingly enough, Scott and I had talked about it a little bit, but at that point I had a pretty good relationship with HHA because of Scott. And so I was shooting HHA, and then, we had a few Arxos come through the shop, and I know that they were having a couple of, a few problems with them, things like that. And, and they handled it really well. I think the way that they took care of all the customers and got them all taken care of, I think was a testament to, just how well they worked together. And so it was just a matter of time before they were going to fix that. And then I was able to see a prototype version of the proof before they had launched, because they're just down the road here, well, just a couple hours away. So went down there and checked it out, because they were, I was going to be shooting that for the film that we made last year. And I was like, okay, yep. Exactly to your point. They addressed all of the issues that they were having with the Arxos, and now I absolutely love it. It's shooting awesome. And right now I haven't really had too many opportunities to get out to distance with my newest sight, just because I've been turkey hunting, so I've just been practicing short range stuff mostly. But I'm excited to start getting outside and get that new tape put on and extend the range a little bit. So yeah, great sight. And that midnight blue with those white limbs, man, that looks super slick on that form.
It is, it's one of the sexiest things you might see all day. Like, it's one of those deals, like, just when I walk out to the shop, I'm like, hey baby, like, how you doing? Like, it's a sexy bow. Now I'm super pissed, that they just dropped that stinking white proof. Cause that would have just set that bow off.
Yeah.
So I might have to just sell this one and order the white one, but
yeah,
man.
Yeah, that whiteout is nice. Yeah, I the first form that I had was in the Ridge Rock. That's the first ones that they were sending out, and then I saw the Morel at ATA, and I'd never even seen the bow in a different color other than Ridge Rock, because everybody that I knew that was shooting it at that time, that's what they had. And so to see it in a different color, I was like, oh man. And I've got an RVX 36 that's in the Morel too. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, I got to get that. So instantly got that. And then of course, my color scheme, back in the day, with Vapor Trail and all the customization and the colors we can do with our bowstrings and stuff, we always wanted bright colors on our bows because we wanted them to stand out. But now I'm shifting more towards, the earth tone type stuff and trying to mix up, kind of have a multiple color schemes. And so getting the proof in the whiskey color to go, to kind of offset the color of the Morel, and it looks unbelievable, and it shoots even better. So yeah, to your point, quite possibly one of the sexiest things that you might see in your day.
Yeah. Dude, I'm a flashy bow guy. Like, always have been, always will be, probably. Like, and what's funny, like, I was building my wife's bow, and I'm like, all right, what color do you want the riser? And she's like, tan. I'm like, what color do you want the limb? She's like, tan. I'm like, what color do you want the string? She's like, tan. I'm like, where's your color at, mama? Like, come on, girl. And then I show her Vapor Trail, and I'm like, all right, what color rest do you want? She's like, tan. And I'm like, girl, come on, like pink, like neon, like what do you want? Like, you gotta have something popping.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just always like bright colors.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, hey, man, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks so much for being on the episode and telling the story about your bear hunt. Again, thanks so much for all your support with our products, and we'll continue to work with you as long as we can. And yeah, so we'll chat again sometime soon. And once again, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, folks, you can find the video version of this episode on our Vapor Trail YouTube channel, so make sure you head on over, give us a like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. And of course, if you're listening, give us a rating and a review. Only 5 stars will do. And with that, we're going to pack up our bows and arrows, and we're hitting the range. Have a great day, everybody. Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.